For a wild chase on the glitter of asphalt, the city howls, it won't let go. Neon vape pulse of the tire and fault. This engine roars, it steals the show. But it's what's igniting, hearts are pounding, fears inviting. How long will this moment last? The clock is screaming, seconds fast. Streetlights blink like coded warnings, shadowed alleys, stories scorning. Each turn sharper, adrenaline, oh, the fight I crave. This asphalt beast, my soul enslaved. The lines blur fast, the end unclear. Speed's the drug, I've lost the gear. Raw, but it's what's igniting. Hearts are pounding, fears inviting. Raw, but it's what's igniting. Hearts are pounding, fears inviting. How long will this moment last? The clock is screaming, seconds fast.
Southbound side of the 405 freeway, now passing Burbank Boulevard, closing in on triple digits. Speed. We do not know if there's anybody else inside this car, but we're about to get our first glimpse through the front windshield to see if we can get a better description of the suspect, who has one hand on the steering wheel, another hand on the right console there, and he is really starting to wobble a little bit. We understand this is possibly a Ford Fusion, but the rear of that vehicle is starting to bounce around a little bit and is acting a little bit wobbly. Not clear whether he has been in any kind of a collision, but he just seems to be fighting that steering wheel as he crosses into the HOV lane. Coming up on Valley Vista, southbound side of the 405 freeway. CHP on his tail. Looks like he's going to commit to the Sepulveda pass here as he gets over to the right. No, he's getting off there, and he collides with that vehicle, a parked car in the driveway there. CHP with their gun backed out here. The doors are jammed. He went full speed through the bushes into a parked car, into a house. You can see that parked car is a residential property. You can see that red vehicle now wedged in the bushes at the end of the Valley Vista exit ramp off of the southbound side of the 405 freeway. They're looking in the back seat here. We'll see if there's anybody back there. Looks like the back seat appears empty. Here they're going to tackle him to.
When the driver struck the concrete wall, debris flew toward nearby homes. The suspect's red car also struck a parked vehicle and became wedged in some bushes. California Highway Patrol officers quickly reached the vehicle and pulled the suspect out. The driver was subsequently arrested. Authorities are tracking the driver of a stolen BMW. The suspects abandoned it under a bridge in Lincoln Heights and fled, just like the Jaguar.
One of the other stolen vehicles that they were tracking out of Whittier. So this is one of several stolen vehicles that they picked up for speeding and then turned out to be GTA suspects. The other BMW that was in pursuit did manage to get away. This blue BMW still on the run. As I mentioned, it does appear that law enforcement, at least for the time being, appears to be giving this up. There's also a separate pursuit in L.A. County's sheriff jurisdiction down in Lakewood. I think that might be where that helicopter went off to, unless they have another one heading down there. So several active pursuits now in the area, and this one appears the random turns he's been making, a wild U-turn there. It does look like there is definitely a passenger in that left seat there, and so we have at least 2 people inside of this SUV. I remember there was another passenger who was dropped off earlier on in this pursuit. As you mentioned, he's been through behind him and possibly pull him over. But look at that front left tire. At some point during that collision, that tire must have come off of the rim there. It looks like it's almost about to wobble off there. Impression that they are really under the gun here. They don't feel a lot of pressure. There's nobody behind them. They may be cognizant of the helicopter overhead or our presence even, but for the most part, this appears to be a joyride, quite frankly. There he is. There he is. He's coming out, slowly creeping up to this intersection here. It looks like the driver's seat is now empty. Driver's seat is empty, passenger seat is empty, the vehicle rolling by here, and it looks like those two have dumped the vehicle underneath the freeway here. This is the 101 freeway, I believe, right? This is, yeah, we're over the 101 freeway, or the 5, I'm sorry, the 5 freeway. They've dumped the vehicle underneath the 5.
The suspect evades multiple pit maneuvers and spike strips. Repeatedly stops taunts pursuing officers, sticking his hand and even his head out the window.
It's a desperate ride where danger grows. Is it the thrill of the fight I crave? This asphalt beast, my soul enslaved.
A high-speed police chase lasted approximately 1 hour through the San Fernando Valley Tuesday morning, July 15, 2025. The chase began around 9:40 a.m. in the area of Van Nuys Avenue and Noble Street in Van Nuys, according to the Los Angeles Police Department. The suspect, wanted for an unspecified felony, drove in circles through the neighborhood, sometimes exceeding speeds of 95 miles per hour, swerving between cars, entering oncoming lanes, and speeding through residential streets.
Intersection. Well, okay, I guess we're not going to put this, I was waiting to put this on television, but if we're on YouTube, then I'm going to start Okay. I know we're on YouTube though. That's the reason why. Well, we got a pursuit going on out here in the Van Nuys area, and that person driving that white vehicle that you're seeing right there is armed and dangerous. And this is per somebody that was inside the vehicle earlier on. I'm trying to pick up pieces exactly what was going on before this pursuit, but apparently they dropped somebody off moments ago at the hospital. That vehicle continues to drive very erratically and very fast out here, and you can see now we're losing it behind some trees. But as far as LAPD is concerned, they are basically backed off just a little bit, but the driving has not gotten any better. The helicopter above is the one making the calls. I can tell you we're at Sherman Way in Kester. Now, apparently he dropped somebody off at that hospital that's over here off of Sherman Circle. So maybe he's going back to this location. Since Skyvox has been over it, we've been basically making blocks in that same neighborhood. Had a lot of close calls with other vehicles on the roadway. You can see some of those speeds out there. This is early morning, and this is not the time to be driving that fast. A lot of folks out here dealing with a lot of traffic, not expecting somebody to be coming up on you at 50, maybe 60 miles an hour. Coming back up onto Van Nuys Boulevard, making that turn, heading over to the south. But again, as far as LAPD is concerned, they are nearby. They are not directly behind him, because just think about it. If you had this vehicle driving at these high speeds and then you had other officers trying to keep up and then also concerned about public safety, it would be almost a disaster. So right now, though, the helicopter calling it out, officers on the ground nearby and staging and ready to take this person down. But this is the second time that we've seen him make this turn right here. He's going to come up, I believe this is a T intersection, so he's coming back over here to Vesper, and this is basically the same area. He's just driving around in circles, heavily armed, so very dangerous, and the driving techniques also extremely dangerous. No, he's just getting. Yeah, he's getting air. He's over those speed bumps and then through some of these intersections. That little car definitely got a little bit of air right there. You know, and the only thing is when that happens, if there's something around, you know, no traction on the ground, that could be a disaster. It could be a real problem. Hopefully this vehicle does not collide with anybody or another vehicle. That is my biggest fear right now. This person being armed and clearly not in the best frame of mind. That's what the officers are worried about also. But right now you can see this vehicle continuing 60 miles an hour this morning on Kester. If you know this area, you know these are very tight streets and very, very busy, especially at this time of the morning. Got to do a commercial. Somebody's got to pay the bills. Anyways. Anything. We need to, every penny counts. Skyfox isn't, we ain't cheap. Anyways, if we're still up on YouTube, I'll wrap with y'all for a few minutes, right? Look, this is one of those deals where LAPD, they've just got to back off. Now, when you think that, you're thinking, oh, they just gave up on this guy and you're just going to let him run amok. That is not the case at all. The PD helicopter definitely over it. As far as Skyfox goes, you know, just a little aviation talk. Chris is at the tiller today, and we are between two airspaces, and believe me, we're not up here alone. So he's working to get the best shots that he can and keeping us safe, and then separation from all the other aircraft on the ground, the helicopters, you know, and that was the thing too. I don't want to lose it, but there were just people standing out there like basically watching this, because he really is making, you know, maybe not, you know, racetracks by any means, but he's definitely staying on these same roads. He has not left the Van Nuys area. Van Owen seems to be one of his favorites, Van Nuys Boulevard, and then all these little side streets in between. Where he's going, what's he's doing, come on, how would I possibly know that? I don't even think that dude knows what, or gal knows what's going on. This vehicle just continues to move at these really high speeds. These center lane moves, I don't like them. And then, again, anybody's just driving out there today, they're not expecting this. Look at that. You've got all these people, so they know this is coming. This is not the first time this car has gone through this neighborhood. What this is all about, I couldn't even venture to guess. But right now, though, a lot of people with their phones out, a lot of activity down there. Almost every intersection has people that are expecting it. There you go, LAPD re-engaging right down there. You've got a number of the black and whites behind them. When they can, I'm sure they will, and have those lights and sirens. Okay, copy all. Guys and gals on YouTube, just remember, we are live on Fox. If you guys are local, turn on channel 11. Okay. Copy all. Right by Van Nuys High School. Oh, it's going to be tree lined. Oh, I could have been talking some more. Hey, we're still following this pursuit in the Van Nuys area, going right by Van Nuys High School, my alma mater. But now the LAPD is actually behind this vehicle as well. Number of units, lights, and sirens, trying to warn the public the best that they can. Skyfox, we're moving around. We're doing a lot of maneuvering and trying to get you those best shots, especially on some of these tree-lined roads. But look at those speeds, and that's going to be on Cedros. That's a little tiny road. Now he's going to be coming back up on Kester. That's going to be a light hitting those speed bumps and getting just a little bit of air. He's kind of really moving quick. I know Kester's coming up quickly there. Usually a red light, especially when I'm driving. Well, this time it was a green. Look at that, making that turn back onto Van Owen. Sorry, not Kester, Van Owen. And again, those speeds, they continue to pick up, and officers on the ground doing what they can to stay nearby, warn the public, and keep anybody in the area alerted of what's happening. Now we're on Kester Boulevard. This vehicle has basically stayed in the same neighborhood the entire time this has been going on. These high speeds, I'm sure they're getting a lot of attention. We've actually seen a lot of folks at intersections that kind of are expecting the vehicle to come back around. On the ground, doing what they can to stay nearby, warn the public, and keep anybody in the area alerted of what's happening. Now we're on Kester Boulevard. This vehicle has basically stayed in the same neighborhood the entire time this has been going on. These high speeds, I'm sure they're getting a lot of attention. intersection. We've actually seen a lot of folks at intersections that kind of are expecting the vehicle to come back around. Making a turn now. This is going to be on one of the side streets out here. I think we were here earlier on, especially when we just went live. But again, that person driving that vehicle very recklessly also apparently is armed and dangerous. And that information, I'm working to figure out exactly how this is all comes together, but apparently dropped somebody off at the hospital. I believe this is a dead end. I think this one is a dead end or no outlet. Or not. It's just a T intersection, somebody's saying. So at any rate, keeping an eye on it. This vehicle continues to move around the area out here. Van Nuys is where we are. We have not left the Van Nuys proper area. Side streets, major intersections, all of it. We have been basically touring the area. That vehicle continues to drive at high speeds, very dangerous for the public. And of course, LAPD still concerned. They're coming out on Sepulveda right there. Or Van Owen. Why do I keep missing the Van Owen? But at any rate, making his move right there once again. Now, officers definitely concerned about the public safety. That is their biggest concern, that safety of the person behind that wheel. Believe it or not, they do care about his safety as well, or hers. We're not having any kind of confirmation. But again, you can see that vehicle moving around 60 miles an hour, busy streets out here in the morning. Now we're back on to Kester, and that's what we've been talking about. He's just basically making these big blocks through these neighborhoods and then joining on to these major roads out here in the Van Nuys area. Again, though, the vehicle continues. There's the LAPD helicopter. That's the guy calling out the streets, making sure that the officers on the ground know exactly where that suspect is.
Those sharp turns this person is taking around the corner of the street makes you so nervous because there could be people out and about, and as you mentioned, for whatever reason, there are people who are going outside and getting close to the vehicle, trying to, I don't know, take pictures of it or just, who knows, at this point, live stream it or take video of it, which is the worst idea. This is a very dangerous situation. This individual clearly is just picking up speed. We've watched him fly through those intersections, ignore the stop signs. Those speed bumps don't seem to matter at all. And it's just concerning, Stu. It really is.
It's actually very scary to watch. Right now we're going by the hospital, and I believe that it was where the area, or right in this area, is where apparently he dropped somebody off earlier on, making a turn. He's going to be behind these buildings right here. You know what? That's the hospital in the shot right there. I'm going to see if we can make sure we get back over it. I'm going to keep an eye out right there and there. I believe he just made another turn. So, again, he just kind of picking these random streets out here. Those high speeds definitely not helping, and you are definitely correct. The officers do not want any of the public to actually even come out or try and help in any type of way, even if it's positive or negative. They just don't want the public near this person, especially the fact that, those high speeds, like you said, coming around a hard turn like that, he could lose control, and you've got people standing there. Also, this person is armed and dangerous, clearly not in the best frame of mind right now, so we don't know what the goal is. And again, wrong side of the road right there and on Kester, and just continuing to move along. This is really scary stuff. And again, a lot of these people, they just don't know what's going on. And we're just making blocks out here.
Yeah.
We are just literally making blocks in this neighborhood. Is this person trying to get somebody's attention in this neighborhood? All these questions, hopefully we'll get some answers, and hopefully this will come to an end peacefully out here in the Van Nuys area.
Near 90 miles per hour on those residential streets, making those sharp turns, kind of almost running into that big rig there that was making the left. But it seems like this driver knows the area, knows where they're focusing on. And also, it's just such erratic behavior that, is it that the police aren't pursuing him completely? Because sometimes we see black and whites behind this driver and then sometimes not, like right now.
Well, they have policies down there, and safety right now is one of LAPD's. That's like top of the list for these guys. A lot of traffic right here. Kind of curious what he's going to try to do. So, officers, to keep up with this person at driving at those erratic speeds, you just got to figure, he's backing up. He's going to be cutting through the Rite Aid or whatever that is, right, Walgreens. But officers are not going to they're not going to match that energy. strategy because they're going to have to keep up and be safe at the same time. When they can, they will. Are they nearby? Most definitely. If this thing comes to an end somehow, officers will instantly appear. I can almost guarantee that. What the purpose is, my goodness, I just couldn't even begin to figure out or wonder what they're doing. Last time he took this street right here. Let's see if he does it again. It does look like we're basically taking that same street again. So I believe this is going to be Vos, and we're just making our way. Sorry, we're on Vesper. We're on Vesper, and Vos was the cross street. So, anyways, continuing on again, 75 miles an hour, residential neighborhood. I hope there's no pets out there. I hope there's no people out there. Coming back up to another major, that's going to be Van Owen, and basically just making these blocks out here. You know, you'd think, well, maybe officers could put the spike strips out or something like that. Not at 70 miles an hour, not with an armed suspect behind the wheel. And again, what if that driver sees those officers? What if that driver tries to target an officer? They're just gonna, they just don't want to set up for that type of situation. But as he continues making his way by that dairy right here, this little drive-through dairy off of Kester, you know, we see the people standing out there. We see the cell phones out there. Hopefully nobody tries to get any closer to the vehicle. But again, this chase just continues out here in the Van Nuys area. That vehicle moving along at high speeds. Thank goodness he hasn't hit anybody. But the longer this goes, those odds, they're just going to get higher and higher.
Yeah, truly. I mean, it gets busier on the road. Obviously, there are moments there are cars, and we saw this individual back into a parking lot to try to avoid some of that traffic that he or she encountered there at that intersection. You know, we often talk about, and this would obviously be speculation, sometimes we see these individuals who are on the run trying to get away, going to areas they're familiar with. We do have that information, Stu, from you that this individual dropped someone off possibly at the hospital, which is nearby. So perhaps staying in this area for whatever reason based on that, or perhaps it is an area they're familiar with. But it does seem a bit random because although staying in the proximity of this area, he or she doesn't seem to want to go much farther. No freeways at this point. We've been following this for quite a while now, and it just keeps, he or she keeps going in circles.
Well, you know, that's right. And, you know, I was wondering exactly what hospital they kept talking about. There's many in this area. I just got information, solid information, that it's Valley Presbyterian. So apparently it started at Valley Presbyterian Hospital. And whoever this person dropped off at the hospital, unknown if they're injured, unknown what the circumstances are, but that was the person that said the driver inside that vehicle, armed and dangerous. Multiple guns is actually the word that they use. Not just one. And so that was the reason why LAPD got behind him or was trying to stop this vehicle. But you can see that erratic driving. And then, of course, you factor in the fact that this person may be armed or probably is armed. And whatever the reasons are, you know, this just makes a very, very dangerous situation for the public. LAPD, they're doing what they can to kind of keep everybody alert about what's going on. And you are correct. He stays in these we're basically in that same neighborhood. We have not left Van Nuys proper since this pursuit is started, and it just continues on out there. You can see that vehicle making those wide turns. He's been very, very lucky with traffic, except for that one time that you mentioned where he actually had to back up to get to a parking lot, because it seems like this person is playing this game of playing this game of I got to keep this car moving or there's going to be a problem, because we have yet to see this vehicle actually stop. It's always moving. It's at high speeds, not so high speeds, wrong side of the road. Look at that. Just imagine it's your loved one is driving along on the road right there on Van Owen, and then all of a sudden you've got this car barreling down double the speed limit heading right for him. These are dangerous situations. They are not cool at all. And of course, LAPD, they're doing what they can. But what can you do? You can't pit this guy because you can't get your vehicles close enough enough and those high speeds. You can't get in front of him because this person possibly armed, and this erratic driving, who knows? Maybe he's going to see that officer with the spike strips and then maybe target that person. So, officer, so yeah, this is one of those ones where, you know, the policy basically is to back off. They have. The driving hasn't changed. The erraticness hasn't changed. The danger limit actually seemed to have gotten worse. So they are doing what they can right now. We're keeping an eye on it as well. If you know somebody that's in the Van Nuys area, I would at least try. Look at this. Look at this.
Oh, my goodness.
Look at that. Look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, erratic driving there.
You know, and there's some irony there too. That's the DMV is like literally right there at that corner. But at any rate, this vehicle continues on, and I don't want to take my eyes off of the car, and we move by so quickly. But you spicy because you've got officers right there as well. And if okay, all right, because I just was afraid that he was going to ram a vehicle or put an officer in a spot.
But it's the first time we're seeing those officers behind him in a while, so they have him obviously on their radar. They've been monitoring this with an airship overhead. But they came out right at the right time when he was in a dead end, but unfortunately he got out. And if you are joining us and watching, at times we do have another box, a bigger box on the screen. So you'll see moments ago when this driver was driving erratically. And as you were mentioning, Stu, backing up, here he was on the bigger box here on the right of your screen. This is when the driver was caught in traffic, backed up, and went into a parking lot of a shopping center right there to get away and evade that traffic. But this is the type of stuff we've been watching for the past half hour or so, and clearly there's no end in sight of this erratic behavior, the erratic driving, of going in loops in the Van Nuys area right here in this neighborhood. At some points, he's been reaching almost 90 miles per hour, making these sharp turns, going into traffic, and then weaving in and out, going over these speed bumps right now. But I can't believe he got away from the police officers right there at that dead-end street.
So, Stu, what we know so far is very limited. Obviously, we're watching this unfold live. We do know that this individual dropped someone off at Valley Presbyterian Hospital, and that person that was dropped off spoke about how this individual was armed, not with just one gun, perhaps a number of weapons. So that is obviously concerning, and this does escalate the situation. We don't, though, know if there are perhaps other people in the vehicle. Maybe there are. We don't know. We don't know if it's a man or a woman. We don't really have much to go on. We just know that this person, since we have been following this, their erratic behavior has actually escalated. It's gotten much worse. Higher speeds, more risks are being taken. It is concerning. Obviously, these are streets that are getting busier as the morning continues. There are a number of pedestrians, as you pointed out, either curious who are coming out on the sidewalk or people who just happen to be going up on with their daily lives there. But they are coming very close to this vehicle, trying to get pictures, maybe just curious and want to see what's going on, which is a very bad idea, obviously. We are seeing the police officers now get a little bit closer and pursue this vehicle. Always a tough call with situations like this, because they have to weigh in and see, you know, is our presence and our pressure on this individual going to make the situation worse, or is it going to help? At this point, they decided to try to follow this vehicle, and it looks like
I have a feeling he's running out of gas.
Maybe
because he is slowing down.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, do you see that individual? That's what we're talking about. Getting awfully close.
Yeah. And you know, the vehicle, it's a little Buick is what it is, and it also has Idaho plates. Now this is where my camera work is going to be. I'm going to have to stay a little bit wider, be a little bit more trigger happy for the zoom. Okay, the doors are opening. And hands are out. Okay, so that's definitely a plus. And it seems like this driver complying, or actually kind of knows what the drill is. You know, wasn't even really waiting for the officers to make those calls. I'm venturing to say that car gave up before the driver did. Getting out, whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah, we don't want to see any of that. getting a little closer there, you can see that person basically knows the drill. I would venture to say those officers are probably not that fast in the, hands where you can see them walk back towards us. But definitely making those moves right now. Doesn't seem to have anything on his person, but definitely now starting to follow those directions. This is probably the best ending that we could have hoped for, is that vehicle just kind of ran out of gas right there. Of course, he doesn't have the cuffs on as of yet, but again, you've got a lot of people out here, like you mentioned. I'm going to take my eyes off the suspect for just a moment. That's what you were talking about. All these folks, they kind of knew this car was coming around the corner, has been in the neighborhood all morning, and so they were out here getting the video that they can, but it's all coming to an end right there. That person doing the asphalt angel, as we would call it. And so far, it has been a calm ending to a very crazy pursuit. And you got to hand it to these officers as well. Anybody that's ever been in that type of situation, these are officers, these are people, these are human beings, and believe me, they have adrenaline rushes, they get tunnel vision, they have everything that you and I might have in those type of high-stress situations. And to keep it together like that, and to follow the rules, and basically stay calm in all this kind of crazy, you got to give them props. Right. Officers approaching the vehicle before cuffing, which is also a little unusual, just to make sure that there's nobody probably in that vehicle. But again, just going to wait for those cuffs to go on, and then they're going to call this over, or code 4, as law enforcement calls it.
The chase ended around 10:30 a.m. when the driver stopped and surrendered in the area of Van Nuys Avenue and Cedros Street, approximately 2 blocks from where the chase began. The suspect was arrested.